This is Sahand, and you're watching Mezrab Storytelling, stories from around the world. Once a month, storytellers gather in the Mezrab Cafe to tell true stories. This is one of them.
I agree with Berber. We do get a lot of men here, and they do tell these manly stories of men and their manly exploits. It's true. A few months ago, we even had a storytelling night here where the only woman who got up, she told a story of how the only women that were in the story, you could see that they were bad because one was fat and the other one was ugly. So there was a lot of this weird sort of body issue, shaming going on, and it's the only female story that was there was very, very, very nasty towards women, and I got up. And I never talk about the stories that are there. We always get this beautiful wide variety of stories that are told. And I had to say, like, guys, listen up. This is, at that time it was still 2014. We live in 2014. And my dad, who comes from this ancient machismo culture, who will talk to his sons about, what proper ways to show your manlyhood. This is just the way he talks. These are the things that, this is his frame of reference. When he talks... Then I realized that when my dad actually talks about manlyhood, when I wanted him to describe it to me, to explain it to me, he said, oh, that's easy, it's 3 things that it comes down to. In our culture, we've got wafa, safa, sacha. It's basically being generous in deeds and spirit, being cheerful and not holding on to hate, and it's being loyal, whether it is to someone or to an ideal. And then I asked my father to give me examples of these 3 different things that have to do with manliness. He thought for a while and came up with stories from people from his own family. And 2 of the 3 examples that he gave of people who displayed these manly virtues were women in his family. When he talked about his mother and the incredible strength that this woman had, when he told about the woman who took care of his father when he was old and ill, and only then did he reach his father as a 3rd example of manliness after these 2 women, or as he would call them, lion women. Because that's what we say when we want to say that someone displays ferocious loyalty, strength, has no fear. So I am not surprised at all that even when I dive into these ancient books of Persian poetry, that there is one example after the next of people who in fact show their strength as an example to their people, and it's the women. One of the most famous examples, actually, and it's funny because now we've got a problem in Iran. We've got a regime that wants to put women in what they think is the proper place, and they have these books of mythology, but reprinting them gives them this problem of, yeah, but you've got all these heroes. What do we do with them? One way that they thought that they could deal with it is that these stories, they're written in ancient and very long lines of poetry. So it's, for example, the Shahnameh, it's 60,000 lines, so no one reads the whole 60,000. You put a few lines of poetry, and then you just skip over a part of it, you turn it into prose, and then you do the poetry, and then you do the prose. And it's in the parts of the prose that you kind of change things about. You kind of mess things about. Now, one example of something that was changed, and I showed my father, and he was about to explode with fury because it was one of his favorite stories that they messed with, is the story of Rostam. Now, who here knows the story of Rostam? Who here knows Rostam? Not enough. Now, for the rest of you, you guys know Hercules, right? So imagine the Iranian version of Hercules. The man who couldn't be beaten. When he was young, at the age of 5, when the white elephant got loose in the palace of his father, he was the one who was able to stop the elephant, even after it trampled to death 6 soldiers at the age of 5. So now you know what kind of man we're talking about. The man who would fight with a club by himself, single-handedly, would defeat entire armies. But at night, when he sleeps, knowing full well that his horse will wake him up if there's problems. Now one day he goes to the north to battle, And when he finds himself in a forest and it's too far to come back, he decides to sleep there using only a rock as his pillow. His horse keeping watch. And then a patrol of the Turanians, who are the ancient enemies of the Iranians, they find his horse, who had just wandered off a tiny bit to eat some grass that was just a little bit greener. Now, this is not a problem because this horse can fend for himself, but there were just too many soldiers. The first two got kicks in the chest that caved in, they died, their heads were smashed in, the other ones died, but just too many, they took the horse and they went off. So Rostam, when he woke up in the morning, looked for his horse. What he found was a bunch of dead soldiers of the enemy, lots of blood, and a trail leading to Turan. So he goes there. And now is not a time when they're at war, but between Iran and Turan, it's never full peace, right? So imagine this Persian hero. He finds himself in front of the enemy gate. And he's on foot. And the enemy, they're having a wonderful time. They've put on some loud music. Yeah? So he has to knock really loud. And they look over the city walls and they see this hero. And it looks kind of impressive. But who comes there on foot? Even if he doesn't have an army, he should have his own horse, right? So he bellows out, I am Rostam, and I know that you took my horse. Did we take a horse? No, we didn't take a horse. Fuck off, we didn't take a horse. And he's banging again, and he says, if you don't open the gates, if you don't give me my horse, I will raid this city by myself. So the news spreads to the king of the city, and he says, guys, it's Rostam. Come on, let him in. It's Rostam. Did anyone take the horse? Oh, see, we did take the horse. Shit. Okay, you know what? Let's give him a place to sleep. You know, we'll give him the horse in the morning. It'll be fine. So they let him in. You know, it's not war between the two countries, but it's an uneasy peace, right? So he has dinner with the king, and he's sort of munching away, and they chat about just things that a king and a hero talk about, and then he's shown his way to his bedroom. Now, going into the bedroom, just before he closes the door, a maid comes, gives him a note. And the note smells of lilies, a rainbow. And in the note, in the most elegant handwriting that he's seen, and he's this guy, he fights with a club. He doesn't even fight with a sword, he fights with a club. And it's poetry just looking at it. And it says, make yourself comfortable. I'm gonna pay you a visit. And sure enough, when his candle is about to go out and he wants to put in a new one, the door of his bedchamber opens and in steps the most beautiful woman that Rostam has seen in his life. But the poet Ferdowsi, the way he describes it, her physical beauty was matched by her eloquence. She spoke with wisdom and intelligence and a sharp wit. And even before they physically touched each other for the first time, he knew and she knew that they were each other's equals. And she said to him, Rostam, I am the princess of the palace, and many men have come to ask for my hand, and one after the other I refused them because none of them were good enough for me, and I will pick my own mate. So of course, Rostam and this beautiful woman, the princess of the palace Tahmineh, they make love. And Rostam says, I don't know if I... and there's this is... it was epic. And they oil the bed a little bit. And again, they make love. So Rostam leaves and he tells her, our countries, they could be at war at any moment, and I'm not sure if I will be able to come back and properly ask for your hand in marriage, but here is a golden band from my arm, and if from this night a child is born, if it's a daughter, braid it in her hair, if it's a son, bind it around his arm, and one day if I will see a girl or a boy with that golden band, I will recognize it as my own son or daughter. And they say goodbye, and he goes, and of course as these stories go, they turn into a tragedy. A son is born, and wanting to prove that he's the son of his father, he becomes an beautiful and powerful warlord. And when he meets his father, it's only when they've mortally wounded each other and one dies in the arm of the other that they realize that they're father and son. Now that's a story that I will tell you another time. But this moment in the palace, this book they reprinted in Iran, and all the beautiful parts they said in poetry, and the meeting of Rostam and this beautiful woman Tahmineh, it was said as, and then demurely Tahmineh came in, said to Rostam, "Oh, you're such a wonderful man, I would like to marry you." And she didn't even say that. She showed herself to Rostam, and Rostam was the man, as the man, to say to her, "Maybe it's a good idea if we marry, but only with permission of your father." So they went to the court and they stated their case, and they got the permission of the father of the girl. And only when the permission was given and everything was, halal, everything was good, they went at it as a married couple, completely undermining this character who picked her own man, even if it was only for a night, even if it was without the permission of any brother or any father. Now, by the way, when her son later wanted to invade Iran, to find his father and show his father that he's a man as well, the first Iranian castle that he encountered was the White Castle. Now, when Sohrab, because that's the name of the son of Rostam, when Sohrab entered Iran Zamin and he saw this castle and he appeared there with his army, when they looked at this hero and the might of his army, everyone retreated into the castle. And him standing there in his battle clothes, he said, "There is no need for bloodshed. We could solve this one-on-one. Send me your best fighter, we will fight. Either I will get killed and my army will retreat back into Turan, or I will defeat your champion, in which case you should open the doors of the castle for my army." And at this, again, the poet writes, all the young men of the city, of the castle, in shame they looked at one another, because they knew that no one would have the courage to fight against Sohrab. And when it seems that the city would fall without a single fight, one unknown soldier stepped to the front. And when the soldier said, "I will fight Sohrab," and entered the battlefield and almost beat Sohrab, finally, just before he was about to strike the final blow, when he removed the helmet of the fighter, he saw that he was fighting the daughter of the general of the castle, because when none of the men dared to fight, she was the one who stepped forward. Now this story, and many like them, was written down 1,000 years ago by our poet called Ferdowsi. And of course, the stories that he collected, they were not only 1,000 years old, some of them many, many, many 100 years older still. And still to this day, they are being told. And we know that where we come from, still, we have to make a lot of progress for our women, but also for our men. But maybe by telling these stories, storytelling night after storytelling night, slowly we change things up a little. Huh? Now, with that thought, let's go into the next break.